Well, welcome to another lesson of the Content Modeling Weekly course. I am Marcelo Lewin, the Headless creator. This is lesson number 48. And today is the end of a three-part series where we first created a grid layout system content model in lesson 46. Then in lesson 47, we took that content model, put it in Contentful, and experienced it from the authoring point of view. In today's lesson, we're going to close this up. We're going to wrap it up by going into GraphQL and querying that content model just to make sure our our developers are able to grab what they want. So it's not going to be a very long lesson, but this will close out that entire series, which is highly needed. So let's jump in, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to show my screen. We're just going to do a quick review. Here's a page that I just created that you can see what a grid layout system consists of. And if you don't mind, I'm going to take a quick sip of water there because I was feeling I'm getting a little dry in my throat. But you can see here's the page, just a home page. We have the first row, and then we have columns, or we have rows, and then we have columns. The first row consists of two columns split by 25%, 75%. Second row consists of one column, 100%. Then the third row is a 4-column grid with all of them equal 25%. The fourth row is 3 columns, 25, 50, 25. And the final row, which is the footer, is 2 columns, 66, 33%, which is different than this one, right? This one is 25, 75. So that's what we were trying to model in our content model, or create a content model to be able to support this and various other pages for authors to be able to create on the fly. So that was in lesson, actually, we showed you this page in lesson 47. In lesson 46, we then went ahead and created a content model to support that. And just a quick review, okay, again, you can go to lesson 46 and 47 and get all the details about it. But just a quick review, we have 4 content types called grid 1 column, grid 2 column, grid 3 column, and grid 4 column. Each of them have a layout field that allows you to select, or allows the author to select, how they want to split each of these columns. We did mention that maybe you want to have a bit finer control, like a variety, not just 50-50, 33-66, what I offered here. But I did also recommend that you do stick to some standard and not make it where the author can say 1%, 99%, because that just doesn't make sense. So each of them will have the layout, and then they'll have a place to add content in. And then, of course, we created a page content type right here that allows the author to add any grid they want. And then we had a variety of content types and components. For example, a photo gallery, a hero, a blog article, a podcast article, a FAQ, or a podcast episode, an FAQ. And this, we made it really simple just to showcase how you can add any content type you want to this grid layout system. So then what we did in lesson 47, we jumped into Contentful, and we created the content model. And you can see here under content model, you can see all the content types. I got some cool feedback on people liking the emojis. You can add emojis to the name without a problem. You just click on edit and just add your emoji in there, cut and paste it, just so you know. But you can see that we have a variety of content types. You've got the blocks, right? Those are like reusable blocks that you can add to a grid. We have content types that are domain specific, like blog articles, FAQs, podcasts, right? The reusable content there. This isn't reusable. These are just, throwaway content. And then we have our grid, which is, we consisted of the 1 column, the 2 column, 3 column, and the 4 column grid. Now, then we have a page which basically allows you to add grids and content to those grids. And then we created another content type called page navigation, just for adding navigation, because if we go back to this one, the header, we have a header navigation here and a footer navigation here. So you'll see what we did. And then from the content perspective, if we go to content, here's our page. And let's just review the entry because we're going to query this. But here's our page, and you can see we have the homepage title, the URL, simple stuff, right? But here we have content, the content field. Now the content field, if we go back to the content model, and we're going to go to page, and we're going to go to content, it's a reference field. And if we go to validation, we're allowing basically everything in there now. But we could say just allow only the grids to be added. But I didn't do that because basically just wanted to show people how this works. But you can narrow down what you allow referencing on that page. I would also allow maybe other objects. Perhaps you don't need a grid. Maybe you just had a block image that takes the entire page. It's up to you how you want to handle it. You may say, no, in a page, you have to create a grid, and then in the grid, you add content. So then you would add the validation. So if we go back to the entry here, which again, you can see all the details in lesson 47, you can see that we added this page consists of a 2-column, a 1-column grid, a 4-column grid, a 3-column grid, and a 2-column grid. Each of this tie to this here. Let's move this over here. You can see the 2-column, 1-column, 4-column, 3, and 2-column. So you can see the entries there. And then let's take, for example, the 4-column grid. You can see the 4-column grid. We have the layout set as 25, 25, 25, 25. That's the only layout they get to choose because if they want to do something different, they can use the other grids. And then they put an article on the left column, on the left middle column. So if we go back to the page, we have blog article A, blog article B, blog article C, and then blog article D. So you can see A, B, C, and D. Just an entry. It's just an entry to the blog article. Now the blog article in here is just super simple. I didn't go into it and add authors and all that because that's not the point here, right? But here we have a page now, an entry under page that gives me the URL, and now we have 4 rows, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sorry, can't count this morning. 5 rows with grid columns or with grids, and each of those grids have content inside of them. So if we go back to, for example, the other section here, if we go on the page, you'll see that the other section has the left column an FAQ, the middle column a photo gallery, but the right column 2 entries. 2 podcast episodes. So you can see here's the FAQ, here's the middle column, just a photo gallery. And then here, the right column, I added 2 episodes to the podcast, right? Because the reference for the columns are 0 to many, or 1 to many, actually, 1 to many, because you want to enforce at least 1. And then they can select whatever they want. Like I could add a block photo here if I wanted to. And we're going to do that later so you can see the querying it. So, all right, so that takes care of that. So now we've got everything in Contentful here. Let's look at, we're going to look at this entry in GraphQL. So let's go ahead and just do a quick query. And we're going to do a query for there we go, for the page, and we're going to do ID, and let's just return the simple stuff. We'll return the title and the URL for now, just to make sure we get it. So we get the home page, with the URL. The next field in a page is pretty simple. It's just content, right? So let's go and do that. So let's go back to, let's bring this over so that way we don't get confused. We'll go ahead and add the content field. Now, because content is a reference of 1 to many, it's a collection. So we're going to do this. And now what I'm going to do so we don't get any kind of GraphQL errors, I'm going to do a limit. And I'm going to say a limit of 5. I know we have, let's make it 6 just in case. Okay, and then we're going to get the items. And now let's just get the type name. So let's see what we get back. So here we go. So now we've got, let me make sure you guys can see this correctly. Yep, you can see perfectly. So now we have a page with the URL, and then we have 5 rows, and here are the grids, right? Here are the grids for each of them. So you can see grid 2 column, grid 1 column, grid 4 column. If we go back here, we're getting exactly what we said we're going to get. Okay, perfect. So what else can we get? Well, since we're getting a variety of content collection here, we're going to check for the content type. So we're going to say on, I'm going to go grid one column, and let's return, right now, let's just return the name and layout. Okay. And we're going to do the same thing. Grid two column, grid three column, and grid four column. Okay, so now not only are we going to see the type name, but we're going to start seeing some of the information for the particular grid. So if we run this, there we go. So now the developer knows, okay, we got a grid. Row number one is a grid two column. The name of it is header, and we're splitting it as a two column 2575. So now the developer obviously can pull the correct CSS and now set up those two columns as 2575. This one is going to be one column. This is a four column 25, 25, 25, 25, so on and so forth. Now, of course, something we could do, if we go back to the content model and we go to the grid, one thing we didn't do, which we could do, is add a, for the grid four column, we can add a type ID that basically is the, I'm sorry, not a type ID, a code ID that says, hey, this is a four column grid. So that way the developer knows it's four column. And then the layout, instead of being, the layout type, instead of being right now it's a short text field with the only possibility of in this case, the only possibility of four column they can choose, we can make this a reference field to a grid layout type, content type, where you can enter that, and each of those entries could have a code ID as well. So you can expand this a little bit more, and the reason you want to have sometimes a code ID is so the developer gets the code ID and authors can change anything else. Don't touch the code ID, and the developer knows exactly what to do with what they're getting back, right? So, okay, we're not going to change it, but let's go back. We'll go back to the content. We'll go back to homepage. Let's go back to GraphQL here. So we're getting that. Now let's go back. Let's see what else can we get. We can get column collection, right? So now let's get the column collection. And the column